Picture this, a small 25-cent coin sitting quietly in your pocket, one you've probably handled 100 times without a second thought, actually carries within it centuries of history, a colony that became a state, a nation that fought for its independence, a statue that welcomed millions of hopeful immigrants, and a coin program that turned an entire country into coin collectors overnight. This isn't just an ordinary quarter. It shows the Statue of Liberty standing proudly on a rocky base, the words "Gateway to Freedom" engraved beneath her, and the year 1788 stamped permanently into its metal. Why would so much history be packed onto one small, unassuming coin? Let's take a deep, complete journey into this coin story. From the founding of New York itself, to the birth of the Statue of Liberty, to the massive national coin program that brought this quarter into existence, and everything in between. The coin in question is a United States quarter dollar, minted and released into circulation in the year 2001. On its obverse front side, the side that in most U.S. coins features the portrait of a historical figure, it carries the standard image of George Washington in profile, along with the words United States of America, Liberty, and In God We Trust, plus the mint year. On the reverse backside, which is where the state-specific design appears, we see New York engraved in bold lettering, along with the year 1788, the year New York formally ratified the United States Constitution. The centerpiece of the design is the Statue of Liberty, depicted standing on a rocky formation. Behind her is an outline of the state of New York, cleverly shaped in such a way that it resembles an open gateway or doorway, a visual metaphor that ties directly into the coin's inscribed phrase, "Gateway to Freedom." Below the main image, the words "E pluribus unum" appear, a Latin phrase meaning "out of many, one," which has served as an unofficial motto of the United States since its earliest days, symbolizing the union of separate states into a single nation. Surrounding the entire design are 13 five-pointed stars, representing the original 13 colonies that broke away from British rule and formed the founding nucleus of the United States. Every detail on this coin was deliberately chosen. Nothing on a coin minted by the United States Mint is accidental. Every word, every image, and every symbol goes through months, sometimes years of design review, historical vetting, and artistic refinement before it's approved for production. To fully appreciate the 2001 New York quarter, it helps to understand where the quarter dollar coin came from in the first place. The United States quarter dollar has existed since the earliest days of American coinage, first authorized under the Coinage Act of 1792, though actual quarter dollar production didn't begin until 1796, with the draped bust design. Over the following 2 centuries, the design of the American quarter changed many times, each version reflecting the artistic and cultural sensibilities of its era. The early draped bust and capped bust quarters of the late 1700s and early 1800s featured classical, almost European-style engravings of liberty. By the mid-1800s, the seated Liberty quarter became standard, showing Liberty seated on a rock holding a shield and a pole topped with a Liberty cap, a design that lasted for decades. Around the turn of the 20th century, the Barber quarter, named after its designer Charles E. Barber, introduced a more refined, classically inspired profile of liberty. In 1916, the standing Liberty quarter debuted, considered by many collectors to be one of the most artistically striking coin designs in American history, showing a full-length figure of Liberty standing at a gateway, holding a shield and an olive branch. Interestingly, a very early thematic echo of the gateway symbolism that would later appear on the New York State quarter nearly a century afterward. Then, in 1932, to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the U.S. Mint introduced the Washington quarter, replacing standing Liberty. Washington's profile has remained on the obverse of the quarter ever since, making it one of the most enduring and recognizable coin designs in American history. For the next 60-plus years, aside from a brief redesign of the reverse for the 1976 bicentennial, which featured a colonial drummer, the Washington quarter's reverse remained largely unchanged, showing a simple eagle design. This long stretch of design consistency is exactly what made the eventual introduction of the 50-state quarters program in 1999 feel so revolutionary. For the first time in decades, Americans would see the reverse of their everyday quarters completely transformed. Not once, but 50 separate times, once for each state. The idea for a state-by-state commemorative quarter series wasn't dreamed up overnight. It emerged from a combination of interest in American numismatics, a desire to boost public engagement with coinage, and simple economic pragmatism. Commemorative coin programs, historically, have been shown to boost coin circulation and public interest in currency, which benefits both collectors and the mint itself. The program was formally authorized through the 50 States Commemorative Coin Program Act, signed into law in December 1997. Under this act, starting in 1999 and continuing through 2008, the United States Mint would release 5 new quarter designs each year, each one representing a different state, released strictly in the order that the states had ratified the Constitution or been admitted into the Union. This chronological ordering was itself a small history lesson baked into the program's structure. The first 5 states to be honored, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut, were the first 5 states to ratify the Constitution back in 1787 and early 1788. The program then moved forward year by year, state by state, essentially retelling the story of the nation's founding through its pocket change. New York, having ratified the Constitution as the 11th state on July 26, 1788, was scheduled for release in the program's second batch, the year 2001, alongside North Carolina, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Kentucky. Each state was invited to submit design concepts, usually through a public competition, a committee process, or direct gubernatorial selection, depending on the state's own internal process. These designs were reviewed by the United States Mint, refined by professional engravers, and ultimately required final approval from the U.S. Commission of Fine Arts and the Secretary of the Treasury before minting could begin. The program turned out to be a cultural phenomenon far beyond what anyone initially expected. It is frequently cited as one of the largest and most successful numismatic education initiatives in American history, with well over half of the U.S. population reportedly collecting, or at least actively saving these coins at some point during the program's run. Coin folders, albums, and collector maps became common household items, and children across the country began learning American geography and history simply by trying to collect them all. When it came time for New York to decide on its own design, several strong contenders emerged. New York is a state overflowing with iconic imagery: Niagara Falls with its thundering natural power, the Empire State Building, once the tallest building in the world, the bustling skyline of New York City, and of course the Statue of Liberty, standing quietly in New York Harbor. Ultimately, the Statue of Liberty was chosen as the centerpiece, and it's not hard to understand why. Unlike a skyscraper or a natural landmark, the Statue of Liberty carries a symbolic weight that stretches far beyond New York's own borders. It represents the story of an entire nation built on immigration, opportunity, and the promise of freedom. For well over a century, this was the very first sight that millions of immigrants saw as their ships approached New York Harbor after long, often difficult ocean voyages from Europe and beyond. This is precisely why the design pairs the Statue of Liberty with the phrase "Gateway to Freedom" and frames her within an outline of New York State shaped like an open doorway. It's a design built entirely around a single, powerful idea: New York as the entry point into a new life, a new beginning, and a new nation. The Statue of Liberty featured on this coin is, in its own right, one of the most significant monuments in world history. Formally titled "Liberty Enlightening the World," the statue was a gift from the people of France to the people of the United States, conceived as a symbol of the friendship between the two nations and as a commemoration of the alliance formed during the American Revolutionary War, as well as a celebration of the 100th anniversary of American independence. The statue was designed by French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi. While its internal iron framework, the skeletal support structure that allows the massive copper skin to stand upright, was engineered by Gustave Eiffel, the same engineer who would later design the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Construction took place over several years in France before the statue was disassembled, shipped across the Atlantic Ocean in crates, and reassembled on what was then called Bedloe's Island, now Liberty Island, in New York Harbor. The Statue of Liberty was officially dedicated on October 28, 1886, in a ceremony attended by thousands. Standing at approximately 305 feet tall when measured from the ground to the tip of the torch, including its pedestal, the statue remains one of the largest and most recognizable monuments on Earth. Today, the Statue of Liberty is managed by the National Park Service as part of the Statue of Liberty National Monument. And in 1984, it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in recognition of its universal significance to human history and the ideals of liberty and human rights. While the Statue of Liberty gives this coin its emotional core, the coin is, at its heart, a tribute to New York itself, a state whose history stretches back long before the statue was ever built. Long before it was called New York, the region was inhabited by numerous indigenous nations, including the Haudenosaunee, Iroquois Confederacy, and Lenape peoples, who had lived across the area for centuries. European colonization began in the early 1600s when Dutch explorers and traders established a colony they named New Netherland, with its principal settlement New Amsterdam, situated at the southern tip of what is now Manhattan Island. In 1664, English forces seized control of the colony from the Dutch, and it was renamed New York in honor of the Duke of York, who would later become King James II of England. Over the following century, New York grew into one of the most important and strategically valuable colonies in British North America, both economically and militarily. During the American Revolutionary War, New York played a pivotal and often brutal role. The state saw more military engagements than almost any other colony, including the massive Battle of Long Island in 1776, one of the largest battles of the entire war. New York City itself was occupied by British forces for most of the war. From 1776 until the war's end in 1783, after independence was won, the newly formed United States faced the enormous challenge of uniting under a single governing framework. The Articles of Confederation, the country's first attempt at a national government, proved too weak to hold the young nation together effectively. This led to the drafting of the United States Constitution in 1787, a document that would require ratification by at least 9 of the 13 states before it could take effect. New York's ratification process was far from simple. The state was deeply divided between Federalists, who supported a strong central government under the new Constitution, and Anti-Federalists, who feared such a government would threaten individual liberties and states' rights. It was precisely this fierce New York debate that inspired Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay to write the Federalist Papers, a series of 85 essays published in New York newspapers, arguing in favor of ratification. These essays remain, to this day, one of the most important and widely studied works of political philosophy in American history, still cited by legal scholars, judges, and constitutional historians. On July 26, 1788, New York formally ratified the Constitution, becoming the 11th state to join the Union, a narrow but historic vote that helped cement the new federal government's legitimacy. This is the very date and moment immortalized by the 1788 inscribed on the state quarter. In the centuries that followed, New York transformed from a colonial trading post into one of the most influential states in the country. New York City grew into the nation's largest city and one of the most important commercial and financial centers in the world. Home to Wall Street and the New York Stock Exchange, the largest stock exchange on Earth by market capitalization, the city later became home to the headquarters of the United Nations, cementing its role as a global center of diplomacy following World War II. Behind every state quarter lies a detailed and highly technical manufacturing process carried out by the United States Mint. The process begins with the design itself, which, once finalized and approved, is translated into a physical engraving, historically done by hand by master engravers, though modern processes now heavily involve computer-aided design and reduction technology to convert a large sculpted model into a coin-sized master die. Quarters like this one are struck at U.S. Mint facilities, most commonly the Philadelphia Mint, identified by a P Mint mark, and the Denver Mint, identified by a D Mint mark. A small number of special proof coins, intended specifically for collectors rather than general circulation, are struck at the San Francisco Mint, marked with an S. Modern U.S. quarters are made from what's known as a clad composition. a core of pure copper sandwiched between two outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy, which gives the coin its silvery appearance despite containing no actual silver. This composition replaced the older 90% silver quarters that were phased out in the mid-1960s due to rising silver prices and shortages. A standard modern quarter weighs approximately 5.67 grams and measures 24.26 millimeters in diameter, with the reeded, grooved edge that's been standard on U.S. quarters for generations. Originally introduced centuries ago as an anti-counterfeiting and anti-shaving measure, back when coins genuinely contained precious metal that dishonest individuals might try to scrape off. Once struck, coins are inspected, counted, bagged, and shipped out through the Federal Reserve System to banks across the country, eventually making their way into circulation, into cash registers, vending machines, and yes, eventually into someone's pocket, possibly the very coin being examined right now. For the vast majority of people who come across a 2001 New York quarter today, its value is simply its face value, 25 cents. Since these coins were minted by the hundreds of millions for general circulation, they are not considered rare, and a typical circulated example, one that shows signs of everyday wear, scratches, or a dulled finish, holds no premium over its face value on the open collector market. However, condition matters enormously in the world of coin collecting. Coins are typically graded using a scale, commonly the Sheldon scale ranging from 1 to 70, that assesses details like sharpness of strike, surface luster, and the presence or absence of wear. A coin in uncirculated condition, one that never entered general circulation and retains its original mint luster, can be worth more than face value, especially if certified and graded by a reputable third-party grading service. Proof coins, which are specially struck using polished dies and planchets for a mirror-like finish, were also produced for the New York quarter as part of annual U.S. Mint proof sets, intended specifically for collectors rather than everyday spending. These sets, particularly in high grades or with additional silver content, special silver-proof versions were also minted for collectors during this era, can carry meaningfully higher value among collectors. There's also the world of error coins, quarters that, due to a mechanical fault during striking, ended up with unusual characteristics such as off-center strikes, doubled imagery, known as a doubled die, or planchet errors. These anomalies, when authenticated, can sometimes fetch significant sums from specialized collectors who prize the rarity and uniqueness of minting mistakes. For the everyday person, though, the true value of this coin isn't measured in dollars and cents. It's measured in the sheer amount of American history compressed into a piece of metal small enough to flip with your thumb. By the time the 50-state quarters program concluded in 2008, it had achieved something remarkable. It turned an entire generation of Americans, many of whom had never previously given coins a second thought, into casual or serious coin collectors. Teachers used the program in classrooms to teach state history and geography. Families built collections together across kitchen tables. Coin folders sold in the millions, allowing collectors to physically slot each state's quarter into its designated space as it was released. The program's success directly inspired several follow-up initiatives from the U.S. Mint, most notably the America the Beautiful Quarters program, launched in 2010, which similarly rotated designs, this time honoring national parks and other national sites, one from each state and territory over the following decade. This later program's very existence is a direct testament to just how successful and beloved the original state quarters program, including coins like this 2001 New York quarter, had become. We live now in an age where digital payments, tap-to-pay cards, and mobile wallets have made physical coins feel almost like relics of a bygone era. Fewer transactions than ever involve actual coins changing hands, and yet coins like this 2001 New York quarter continue to circulate quietly through everyday life, passed from cash register to pocket to piggy bank to coin jar, carrying within them an astonishing amount of compressed history that most people never stop to consider. Every time someone picks up this coin, whether they realize it or not, they are holding a small piece of the story of New York's transformation from a Dutch trading post to one of the most powerful states in the Union. The story of a fiercely contested ratification debate that produced some of the most important political writing in American history. The story of a French gift that became the single most recognizable symbol of freedom and hope on the planet. and the story of a nationwide coin program that, for a brief but memorable decade, turned pocket change into a shared national history lesson. That's the real power of this small, unassuming quarter. It isn't just currency. It's a portable monument, a gateway to freedom that fits comfortably in the palm of your hand, ready to tell its story to anyone willing to take a closer look.